Scottish Holyrood election campaign of 2021. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I think it's worthwhile reminding you all who we've had on before. So Angus MacDonald MSP, Ivan McKee MSP and Minister, Rosa Sally, the first ever refugee candidate, Danish Ashraf and Ian Sinclair, list candidates for Central Region, Fiona Hislop MSP and Cabinet Secretary, Dennis Canavan, much respected former Labour, then Independent MP and MSP for Falkirk West, Neil Gray MP standing to be an MSP, our own Michael Matheson MSP for Falkirk West and Cabinet Secretary, and our own local councillors Laura Murtagh, Adana McHugh, David Balfour and Gordon Hughes. All of these guests were brimming with ideas for Scotland, were articulate and positive about the vision that they could see to make Scotland a better place. Positive campaigning is something I've always believed in. Be respectful of your opponents, engage with them politely, and win with the force of your arguments and positive vision. Now, I respectfully point out to those in other parties, especially in Falkirk East, that when the best you can do is to try and smear your opponent, then you've already lost. I would encourage all parties to try and think about the positive reasons they offer for people to vote for them and not just because they're against the SNP. So today I've got who I believe are some of my most important guests. They're not existing MPs, MSPs, ministers or cabinet secretaries. They're young people full of ideas, vision, and a fresh perspective that we can all learn from. So I can welcome David Mitchell from Bo'ness, Jennifer Potter from Rumford, and Dylan McDough from Stenhousemuir. Hi, guys. Welcome to you all.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Jenny.
Hi, I'm glad.
Hi, Dylan. How you doing?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Now, I should say to you all, we had a wee technical issue with Dylan earlier, but we've got him on the show and we'll be able to hear his voice anyway. So, okay, starting off then, David, tell me a bit more about where you're from, how long you've been in the SNP, and why. A bit more about yourself and your link with the SNP.
Well, I'm from Bo'ness. I'm currently a member of the Bo'ness branch of the SNP. I've always been a member of the Bo'ness branch SNP since I first joined, which was in December of 2014. So I first got involved with the Yes campaign in the March of 2014, which was a really exciting time, as I'm sure you remember. And I got involved with the Yes campaign in the first instance because I was too young to vote. I was 14 at the time, and I found it really interesting what was going on, and I thought, right, I really wanted a Yes vote to win. So I thought, right, if I can't vote myself, I'll try and convince other people to vote, in the Yes direction. So that was why me and a few of my friends at the time got involved. And then just not long after that, after the referendum, things were starting to heat up for 2015. And I just decided I had to join the SNP so I could keep on going. That's been it for the past, 7, nearly 8 years.
I know, and so it goes on. And how about yourself, Jenny, then?
Yeah, so I've not been in SNP for as long. I only joined in 2019, but I've always supported independence. But it wasn't until I actually lived in England for 2 years, and when I was there, I could kind of see the impact that austerity and all these Tory cuts had been having in England, and it really made me so grateful for what the SNP had done for us in Scotland up here. So when I came back, I was like, right, I could see that there was changes being made to try and reduce devolution and things like that. So I was like, right, I want to join the SNP so I can help to campaign for a more exciting future for Scotland, and one where we can get who we vote for. So I'm in the Braes branch of the SNP. I'm the branch secretary for that branch.
Brilliant. Okay, and how about yourself then, Dylan? How long have you been in the SNP and what made you join?
Yeah, so like you said earlier, I'm from Trist branch. I joined in 2019 too, like Jenny. I remember because I was more politically active than I was in, say, the referendum time because I was like 13, so I didn't really know how to get involved with that. But I remember there was going to be an election and it was going to be a winter election, and I was like, I'm going to get to vote. I'm finally going to get to vote in an election. And then the election was one day before I turned 18, so I couldn't vote.
Oh
So
no.
I remember because I really supported the SNP at that time, and I was like, you know what, I'm finally going to do it, and I'm going to join. And since I can't vote, maybe I can get other people to vote SNP to kind of make up for me not being able to. So I think, that was when I really started getting involved. It was in the election, and that was my first time going out campaigning. And it was the first time that I met Johnny, for example. That's when it really all started to kick off for me.
Yeah, so Johnny McNally, MP, and of course that would have been the winter election and not very nice weather. And it's interesting hearing you both say about there was a difference between when you were active and when you joined, less so yourself, David. I was talking to somebody when I was out canvassing, a gentleman who said that, oh, you don't want votes for folk who are 16 because they won't know what they're talking about and all the rest of it. And I said to him, look, with respect, sir, there's 2 points I would make. One, I find that young people are much, much more articulate and engaged in politics than most people appreciate, and actively examine issues more thoroughly than people who have been used to voting for years and perhaps actually have not revisited their rationale for some time and are just used to it. And secondly, surely it's a fantastic thing to have young people get with skin in the game. It is, after all, your future, much more so than mine. And I don't know if he was convinced by my argument, but what's your thoughts about votes for people of 16 then, based on what you've all described?
Yeah, well, I think, as you can guess, yeah, I'm very pro votes for 16 to 18-year-olds. Yeah, I voted in the Scottish elections and the council elections, between the ages of 16 and 18. And, I definitely did my research and was very, engaged in what was going on. And I think most people, younger people are really engaged and kind of appreciate that they get to vote because, people the same age and the rest of the UK can't. So like that kind of makes people really look, because it is your first time voting, people really look into it, and I think it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's, sorry, David.
No, it's quite all right. I was just going to say I'm in the exact same boat as Jenny. I was able to vote in the 2016 Scottish election, but then a month later, because the voting franchise was different for the Brexit vote, I wasn't able to vote in that. So I felt quite, I felt a grievance there. And the same again the next year with the council elections, and then the 2017 Westminster election. And I think if I had to decide which one has had more impact over our lives, I think Brexit's up there.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, I agree with everything that everybody's just said. But the other key thing that really sticks out for me when it comes to votes for 16 and 17-year-olds is I'm not sure that there's a demographic that are as reliant on public services as 16 and 17-year-olds between public transport or going to school. So I think it's vital that young people, 16 and 17-year-olds, have that say in how those services are run because they've got lived experience of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, David. Absolutely. And you've just proven my point about the value of having your age group on, because being honest, I wouldn't have thought about that. It's an absolutely brilliant point. And how about yourself then, Dylan?
I think I completely agree. I think there is that misconception that 16 and 17-year-olds are, they're still in high school. They're a bit more stupid than the rest of the population. They don't know what's going on. They don't care. And I think especially through my time in the YSI, I think young people are really proving the rest of the population wrong. Like, you know, we're out on the streets every day campaigning for an SNP government. You know, we'll be out campaigning for an independent Scotland. You know, we've been fighting against Brexit. You know, young people, like you said, are the future, and it is their future, and they are going to inherit the planet that you guys leave behind. So, you know, I completely agree. I think votes for 16 and 17-year-olds is an entirely sensible policy, and I'm not sure why more countries haven't implemented it yet.
Yeah, and actually staying with you then, Dylan, there's another area I wanted to ask the three of you about. I mean, I'm quite clear that I joined the SNP because I am a strong independent supporter. However, it's in the main been a happy place to be because I agree with the progressive policies. Not only are they trying to shape and change Scotland to be a better place today, they're also, this is my perception, and you can all give your view in this, they're also trying to make understood that by making our voices, our votes reflect our voices in terms of progressive policies, this is a much better reason for an independent Scotland for everyone else, because there is no way, in my opinion, God's earth, that you could describe the Tories in Westminster as progressive. So I suppose the question then to you guys is, why independence? Is it the link because you see the SNP and an independent Scotland as more progressive? Is it for economic reasons? Is it just because you feel it's right? Tell me a bit more about why independence. Starting with you first time, Dylan.
You know, I think independence for me is kind of a means to an end for so many of our problems. You know, you've got the Tories down south, and you know, let's be honest, half the time, well, most of the time, they don't have a clue what's going on up here. You know, there's a real apathy towards Scotland, and you know, I've seen the devastation that successive Tory and Labour governments have done to Scotland. You know, the Tories didn't care about Scotland, and you know, Labour were like, oh well, they're just going to keep voting for us no matter what we do. And you know, I think that's really been corrected, let's say, by the Scottish people. But you know, like you said, I joined the SNP because of their progressive policies, and that's also why I support independence, because I've seen the SNP's capacity to govern. I've seen them succeed in so many areas compared to, you know, the Tories and Labour, who are just totally inept at what they're doing. You know, I think there is a real struggle between the two countries. You know, we're going in completely opposite directions. We vote for different governments. We voted against Brexit, and we still got Brexit because that's what the Tory government down south dictated to us. So I think independence is a way to get governments that we actually vote for and to take our future into our own hands.
Yeah, Brad, how about yourself, David?
Well, I sort of have a similar sort of dilemma between, is it the principle of, you know, self-determination, the sort of philosophical sort of idea that I would like Scotland to govern itself, or is it the sort of more kind of utilitarian, support independence because it would bring about these things? And I must tell you, I'm not entirely sure which one it is for me. I think it's a sort of internal dilemma, but I think it is a bit of both. I was certainly won over by a lot of the arguments in 2014 that it was quite clear the direction that the UK was going in, and I would argue that, you know, the direction which the UK since has went in and continues to go in, and I think that's something, as Dylan says, that, you know, really lays bare the differences politically between Scotland and England. And I think we should have an independent Scottish state, so, you know, we can go forward and do things in our own way.
And Jenny, what's your thoughts then? How did you arrive at independence?
Yeah, well, for me, like I said, the main thing that worries me going forward within the UK is that the Tories have made it really clear that they want to reduce the amount of devolution we have and the amount of kind of self-determination we have. And my opinion is kind of, no matter, obviously I'm an SNP member, I support more kind of progressive and, you know, social like equality kind of policies. But my feeling is that at the end of the day, no matter whether you're voting for a party like the SNP or even a party like the Tories, it should be who we vote for in Scotland that are in government, you know, not who England votes for. You know, I just think it's so frustrating when we see policies that affect us and cuts and austerity that affects us in Scotland that we didn't even vote for in the first place. It's undemocratic. So that's kind of my feeling on it, is even if there's someone who believes in a more kind of right-wing government, you should be believing for that for Scotland. And I would, if it was me, I would still want independence. So it was who I voted for that was going to be in charge.
Yeah, interesting. And we've got a question here, which I think is relevant to what we've been kind of touching on here, that I'm going to pose to you all, from Linda and Reid, about how do you all feel related to Brexit about the loss of Erasmus? What do you think about that? Just all jump in, whatever.
I've actually I did my Erasmus semester just at the start of last year. So this time last year. Now it must be said it was knocked short by COVID, so I had to come home. But the fact of doing, you know, I still did all my education remotely from, it was Prague, Charles University in Prague. And I mean, what a difference. You know, funny how we're talking about the benefits of young people getting involved in politics. A lot of what I ended up doing at university was sort of nationalism studies, so different countries and nations and states and all this stuff, which obviously in Prague University, and being in the sort of part of the world that it's in, is a very prominent department there, and I learned so much. And the thing is, I mean, people need to think about this sort of logically, that if two universities decide to do a exchange program, you know, that's up to them. But what you get with Erasmus is you get grants which you wouldn't get if you went elsewhere in the world. And I mean, it was such a massive help, and it makes it far more affordable, because obviously, you know, unless I happen to, you know, speak Czech and maybe even have Czech citizenship, I wouldn't have been able to have worked while I was there. So you need to sort of make ends meet, and I can tell you certainly, I mean, the Brexit process went on forever, and for a long time I had always wanted to do a semester abroad, but as it worked out, I wasn't sure if it was going to actually happen or not with Erasmus because of the, you know, timing. As it transpired, it did, but as I understand it, it's not going forward, you know, in future. So we'll wait and see what this replacement scheme is, but I sincerely doubt it will live up to Erasmus standards, because you forget Erasmus is a lot more than just a semester abroad as well. It's a framework for research, sort of cooperation across Europe as well, and that, you know, that makes a difference.
And I suppose that the Turing scheme that the Tories say is going to replace it, I mean, the universities have already pointed out a number of differences that they see as detrimental in terms of access and financial support that you've pointed out. And again, they make the argument erroneously that, well, there'll be more places available that you can do a swap with, but there was nothing stopping that happening in the first place. Exactly the same as with Brexit, there was nothing stopping us increasing our trade with other parts of the world. So it's being used to conflate conflicting ideas. And how about yourself, Jenny and Dylan, then? What's your thoughts about the loss of Erasmus?
It made me so angry about losing Erasmus and a lot of things with Brexit, but especially that, because the Tories promised us that we wouldn't, that Erasmus wouldn't be affected, and then, like, we all saw coming, it was. And it made me so angry. I have family in Spain and all over Europe, and I feel like I would say I was European, you know, and it just makes me so angry that they're kind of cutting off those links that we have that are so important. Like, before Brexit, I could, if I wanted to, I could go and work in Spain, and I wouldn't have to get a visa or anything. And now I can't, and it just makes me feel so like they've taken that away from us.
And I think, am I correct in noting that you have Spanish blood in your family? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't have Spanish blood, but I have Spanish family.
Okay.
So a lot of Spanish family, and it just is so unfair that I can't go and be there without like going through a process.
Might be to go and spend some time in Spain and stay with family and get that kind of economic, rather wider kind of education. Yeah, see that. And how about yourself then, Dylan? How do you feel about Erasmus?
I never got to experience the Erasmus scheme, and I probably never will be able to now. But it does hit quite close to home. I'm currently a language and intercultural communication student. And although I won't be going abroad next year because I'm transferring to study another course, it's already affecting my classmates. I remember maybe just 2 weeks ago that they were complaining because the Spanish government's now restricting visas to students in Scotland. So it's much harder for them to actually do their year abroad. So, it's affecting people already. And, I just think it's so depressing. I have an Irish passport, so I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I can still broadly benefit from the EU, but so many other people in Scotland and right across the United Kingdom don't have that, so they're so limited. And like Jenny said, it's just the Tories. They're feeding you lies and lies, and they promise you one thing and they snatch it right away the minute later. I think it generally is just such a shame that Scottish students and students across the UK won't get to benefit from that anymore.
Yeah, no, I think we all strongly agree. But it's been very effective what you've all said about how it is really, really impacting your lives today, and you're already regretting what other experiences other people won't have. Now, I'm going to just jump to something here because we've got good questions coming in today on a completely different thing, but just so we've dealt with it, from Sean Rowley from Slamanan. Hi there. I was up in Slamanan campaigning the other day, and we'll just deal with this because it's fairly pertinent across many areas of Falkirk East. The question is, when you're elected, will we be able to do anything to help with the Falkirk's Forgotten Villages campaign to help us get the gas supply in sooner rather than later, as many of us are living in poverty because of the current heating systems, and it's a constant battle with Scottish Power. So Sean, I am well aware of this issue and the history and the current sort of status of the programmes. Just to briefly explain to everyone else listening in, a number of villages across Falkirk East got caught where the systems, the electric heating systems that were fitted at the time thought off-peak supply was much more preferential, and it was an effective way of giving a good effective heating to people. And I myself remember when off-peak was all the thing, and it was definitely much cheaper. However, what happened was that there was no cap set on the cost of off-peak heating, and over time off-peak heating has got higher and higher and higher, and is now, if anything, more expensive than your kind of standard tariffs. And you can usually negotiate a better tariff rather than going on to a standard tariff. Now, the interesting thing about this, which I think is useful for people to understand, the energy and the kind of structuring and regulation of all resides at Westminster. Now, I know that treaties were made in Westminster to try and do something about this issue, and because it doesn't just affect Falkirk East, it affects other areas as well, and they've largely been ignored. And Falkirk Council now have got I hope I'm correct in this figure, but as I recall, a £500 million bill to pay to rectify the situation for these houses. So firstly, I'll just make a wee political point here. This to me is a very compelling example why the Scottish Government does not have the responsibility for this. It resides at Westminster, and yet the Scottish Government, through funding given to Falkirk Council, is having to pick up the tab for actions taken at Westminster. And secondly, Sean, I would absolutely point out to you, I know how hard local councillors, particularly Gordon Hughes, who speaks about this often, is working behind the scenes to try and get this done as quickly as possible. Thirdly, I am absolutely aware of it, and I am on it, and I certainly will be if I'm elected. So I hope that answers your question. Right, anyway, listen, back to you guys. We're going to move on now, and I want to come to Jenny first, because for those of you who didn't see it, myself and Jenny and people across Falkirk East had a great article in the National yesterday, the other day I should say. Basically, I had said to everybody involved in my campaign, it's a different campaign, so campaign differently. We can't say, oh, well, COVID, we can't do this, we can't do that. We need to focus on what we can do and try and think of creative ways to reach people and get them involved. And I have to say, an absolute brainwave of an idea came from Jenny. Now I'm going to shut up here, and I want Jenny to tell the listeners why it was such a brilliant idea, and we're even going to show a wee bit. So over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. Yeah, so my idea was basically that normally during campaigns we hand out, like, you know, wristbands and pens and stuff with the SNP branding, but we can't do that, and obviously I understand why, and I think it's good that we're doing the campaign in a safe way. But what I thought was that we could put clothing into, like, as downloadable content for computer games, and I chose The Sims because it's a really popular computer game, and I've made content for it before with my uni degree. So yeah, I basically just got some SNP logos on Sims t-shirts for all different Sims, and then Michelle also loves dogs, so she has her dog Benji. So
at the table just now.
yeah, so we did, that was her idea, and we did some for the Sims pets as well, the cats and dogs in the game, and just a hairstyle and a little banner for their wall. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed putting it together. And then I'm not sure if it was Michelle or Martin, but one of them had the idea to make some little short clips, since obviously it would be really dangerous at the moment to go out and film clips to share what we're talking about. But for things like the baby boxes, council tax, all sorts of things that the SNP have done, healthcare was another one, I sort of recorded the game with the Sims wearing these outfits, and then kind of acted out some of the things that the SNP had done for Scotland. So we just thought it was like a really fun way to show the things that the SNP had done, and also it gives people something they can download and play with in their game. So
everyone who's listening, you can download this off my YouTube channel. There's instructions there. There's about 10 different scenarios where key policies of the SNP are demonstrated, and Jenny's done a clip of how you can access to it. So they're only like 10 seconds each, so we're just going to show one quickly so you can get an idea of what it is we're talking about. So bear with me, hopefully it will come up in a second or two. Oh, my darling wee one, the whole world welcomes you, said Jackie Kay. All newborn babies in Scotland will be given a box of essential items to support them and their parent in their first few weeks of life, thanks to the SNP. I just think it's absolutely amazing. And when I went to the National with a press release, I said to the journalist who ran with the article, in my opinion, this has been one of the most creative things I've ever seen. And to the best of my knowledge, no one anywhere ever has come up with an idea like this. So I hope everyone's going to take advantage of it. Now, carrying on then, so David, I know that you have done a lot of good work in evaluating the history of the SNP in Bo'ness. Now, again, there's a lot of people listen to this from like Indie Live and so on, and they might not be aware of the history of the SNP in Bo'ness. So could you just give the listeners a sort of sense of some of the research you've done and what you found out? That'd be helpful, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I'll tell you the truth, it all sort of began by accident. And what happened was I was sitting in the library at Stirling University, which is where I study, and my friend had mentioned about the fact that there's a Scottish politics archive at the university. So, and there's a great search tool on their website. So I thought, right, I'll just put in, Bo'ness and see what comes up. And there was a few leaflets there, ones which I'd seen, slightly older ones. This is all very interesting. And then one came up and it said Bo'ness rebels, and I thought that could be a bit sketchy. But as it transpired, it wasn't sketchy at all. And basically, I think Bo'ness, the history of Scottish nationalism and the SNP in Bo'ness is particularly interesting because I think it's sort of like Scotland in miniature in this case. So following the Second World War, you have these sort of cultural groups that appear like the Bo'ness Rebels, which were basically like a sort of song and music group, which did, they did ceilidhs and burn suppers, and they published songbooks which were in, English, Scots, Gaelic, Welsh, Irish songs. Also, people from all different backgrounds, it's got to be said. So it sort of typifies the sort of, the civic nationalism that we're trying to go for. And, following on from that sort of early cultural sort of nationalism in the 40s, you start to see, the SNP starts to win political office in Bo'ness and local elections, and that develops into the, when the first SNP candidate stands in the 1960s and very nearly wins. That of course being Billy Wolfe. And we even had an independent nationalist candidate in the 1950s who lived in a caravan in the Bo'ness foreshore. You'll be interested to know. So I found out so many things, and so many fascinating stories. One of the regular visitors at the Bo'ness Rebels ceilidhs was Norman McCaig, I knew who Norman McCaig was because he's now in the English curriculum as one of your Scottish authors. But what I found out when I was looking through, various editions of the Bo'ness Journal from, 19 canteen, it became clear that in one particular instance, Norman McCaig and Hugh McDermott, who wrote Drunk Man Looks at the Thistle, got into a fist fight and the police had to be called. So there's all sorts of things. There's other stories as well which maybe don't merit repeating. But another key one is the fact that the SNP's current logo, which is nicknamed the Clutie, first went up at the Lyric Bar, which was the sort of go-to haunt for SNP and political people at the time. And there's songs about the Lyric Bar and all this sort of thing. It's not there anymore, but I certainly remember it being there when I was younger. And just sort of moving on from the actual, the stories of the history itself and into what I've actually done with it. So following this, it started off really quite a lot of interest in doing research into what had happened with SNP and Bo'ness and sort of elsewhere as well, because I soon found out it was a good way to sort of capture people's imagination and get them talking about the SNP and independence and all these things in a sort of broader picture. And one of the things which I did with it was I worked into a sort of presentation on the Bo'ness SNP's website. And that was a long time coming, but basically we found it was a very good way to get a lot of local people involved, help people, a lot of local historians, as I'm sure everywhere, and all the small towns do have, and people are interested in it, and help people sort of piece together little bits of family history and all this sort of thing. So yep, it was it's been great, and it's been another thing. It's sort of naturally developed as well. So I've got a lot of connections in the SNP through in Stirling as well. So I created a sort of Scottish nationalism history closed page on Facebook, and it's since grown at arms and legs, and we've got over 1,000 members now. And it's just people they'll have found it really flourished during the lockdown. It's got to be said, when people were cleaning out their cupboards, and photos from old Bannockburn rallies and all these sort of things, and people putting names to faces, and it's been great, and it's something which I'm hoping to develop a wee bit more in the future as well, and try and get other people in the SNP looking into their own history and why we are where we are now.
I mean, I think it's fantastic, and I suppose it's especially appealing to me that someone of your age is doing this and is realizing from your age and perspective all the stuff that's come before. And before we started this show, I was telling you that the people who are on today, that my business partner in Momentous Change, Roger Mullen, was an election agent for Billy Wolfe in 1973 in the Edinburgh North by-election. And actually, for many people, that kind of history and provenance of the SNP goes back a long way. Certainly for Roger, it goes back a long way. For myself, I joined when I was 16, and it can sometimes be hard for people to remember that when I was like you guys' age, the SNP wasn't popular at all. There's no way that they developed the level of electoral success. And there were people just doing some miraculous, wonderful things to try and evangelize about the principles they believed in. And then it struck me also when you were talking about songs. My first degree was in music, and I've long thought that I would love to see a song that could unify all of Scotland, one based on the kind of positive vision that I was talking about at the start of the show. We've got rebel songs and so on, and historical ones, but one that absolutely encapsulates where we are now at this time, which is looking forward with hope and optimism and positivity. And it's a great, something that everybody could sing everywhere we go, because there's nothing more expressive of who we are at this point in time than a song. No, it's fascinating, and keep going with that, and all these photographs. Maybe one will sort of turn up of me when I'm like 19 or something, and if you do find it, don't show it. Anyway, on to Dylan. Dylan, you mentioned the YSI earlier on, or Young Scots for Independence. Now, there may be other people listening from that, but I think probably a lot of the people listening today don't know as much about the YSI and what it kind of brings to the table. So can you give us a wee bit more about the YSI, Central Scotland, your role, and what sort of themes you're progressing? That would be useful for everyone listening. Thanks.
So I am the organiser for YSI Central Scotland. I remember we were having an AGM, and I was like, okay, this is my time to get involved. I'm going to just go and watch. And then I was like, because I didn't know what an EGM was at that time, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll go listen in. And they're like, okay, so we're going to elect an organiser. And then it got to the election, and it was just me and one other person who's also from Falkirk. And we were both looking at each other and are like, are you going to put your hand up for it? So he didn't put his hand up. So I was like, I very reluctantly put my hand up, and then I was elected. Unbeknownst to me, we had 2 by-elections at the time. So I was like thrown right in there. And to make it even worse, our 2 candidates in those by-elections were 2 young women. So, there was really that effort to try and get them elected. But in terms of the themes that the YSI are progressing, we had our annual conference in January, I think it was, maybe February. I've lost all track of time, as you can probably tell from this pandemic. But we passed like several resolutions, such as ending the not proven verdict, making care experience a protected characteristic, ending the Gaelic crisis in the vernacular community. So I think the YSI is really a home of progressive politics, and it really gets young people involved. I know in YSI Central we have so many young councillors. We've got Councillor Cameron McManus. We've got Councillor Jordan James Linden, who's also the SNP group leader on North Lanarkshire Council, and maybe next year could be the leader of North Lanarkshire Council. You know, like I said, we had our two amazing candidates, Eve Cunnington and Forneywood, and Sarah Quinnan for Tissot. And, you know, so I know Sarah's watching, so she'll want me to mention that she actually increased that vote by 14%. So, you know, I think the YSI is really a way to engage young people. You know, I think young people in Central Scotland are really weird because we really like to encourage our members to get involved in local politics. So when we have full council meetings, we'll have like a viewing party and we'll comment on what all the councillors are saying. And I know that sounds really strange. It's like, what are these young people doing watching full council meetings on a Friday? But it's like, we just really like to get our members engaged in that sort of stuff and to, you know, get them into politics and, you know, hopefully next year to get them to actually stand for council.
Yeah, I think that is a brilliant explanation. And again, I've had a comment here. These three young people are inspirational. And I think that is a big jump out that comes out at me. It's so fresh and invigorating listening to what you've all got to say about how things can be made better. And I mean, I suppose I hope from my perspective that everybody who's involved in politics of my age takes the same attitude that you are just so important. Now, and also in fairness, Dylan, we've got a wee question. Actually, you mentioned Cameron McManus. We may already have covered it. Says David's done a lot of research into Scottish nationalism history, particularly around Bowness. What's his favourite piece he's discovered? I don't know, coming back to you, David, whether you've kind of already covered that, but it's just that Cameron had asked that question, but then mention him. Is there anything else, your favourite piece you've discovered?
My favourite piece, that's a good question. Thanks for asking that one, Cameron. I would say I have discovered really quite a lot, particularly relating to Bowness, but a lot going on elsewhere. But I think the absolute very best one which I did find was a clip relating to the sort of, it was a video clip relating to the sort of political changes which had taken place in Bowness during the 70s. So, you know, the shift from Labour to SNP. And it was just so happened to be that it was in a wider video about a wider documentary about the Bowness Fair Day. So it just happened to just tie all those sort of things together. And, you know, it really works well with sort of, you know, what I was looking at in terms of, you know, there's the politics, but also there's the sort of the ties that bind us sort of thing, you know, the things that can really bring people together. And I felt like that was good. We got some conversations with SNP councillors, but also Labour councillors. And also, actually, Tam Dell, who was the MP at the time, said that in the clip that this is one of these sort of urban myths in Bowness, that the Bowness Fair Day, a debate in the European Parliament was once changed because of the time of the Bowness Fair Day. But in this clip, Tam Dell actually does say, says, look, the chairperson of the meeting was German, and they have similar sort of things in Germany. So I said to him, look, I've got to be at the Bowness Fair Day, and as it transpired, they changed the date. So there you go.
Oh, that is a brilliant story. I hope everybody in Bowness is aware of that. I think that's a cracking story. Now, I suppose the last sort of wee area I want to explore is, which we touched on earlier with Jenny. This is a different campaign, so campaign differently. And there's a lot of stuff we've had to do. For example, these sessions themselves, where we've strongly utilised use of technology. Facebook, there's a lot of activity there, and it's a very good way for getting to an expanded reach and engagement. And I know myself as a candidate, myself and Martin Day have been regularly checking the engagement figures with my Facebook site. So from my point of view, I think this type of campaigning will continue, but it might not. I mean, we've also got traditional things that we all concede we've missed out on this campaign, where we've been involved in other things, and particularly that kind of face-to-face contact. But I'd be interested in all of your views of what we should keep from this time and what we might want to ditch. Please don't say my Facebook Live sessions. And, you know, what you've kind of missed. Oh, I can see you put your mic on, David, so you can go first and then I'll go to Jenny and Dylan.
Well, you know, it's something I'm quite conflicted about, because on the one hand, it's certainly, you know, thinking about adoption nights and stuff, it's really great to be able to do these things in person. But on the other hand, you get the sort of the reach of, you know, of doing it all online, and, you know, people don't have to sort of change their diaries as much as would normally be the case. So what I think, or what I've noticed really, is that a lot of the branches and the campaign team have morphed into almost being like a digital production team. So I'm thinking, okay, let's keep that up, and then maybe we can start live streaming in-person adoption nights and all this sort of stuff. You know, we could start our own, we get some cameras in, and, you know, I'm sure we'll have some people who would help us out with that.
Yeah. And is there anything you'd want to ditch? So
I'm not sure. I think we've done really well in terms of social media this time. I think it's a lot of it is, you know, at the beginning, you've really got to say to people, you know, let's, you know, we're at the start of the campaign, you know, we need to try and get a bit of sharing and things. But I think as we've gotten closer and closer to polling day, I think it's really taken off, you know, very organically, and I think we've done well. I think it's a matter of trying to do both as best as you can, the traditional methods as well, of which I'm a great supporter. There's no substitute.
Yeah, and what do you think, Jenny? What's your reflections on this campaign that you'd keep, and anything you'd ditch, and anything else you've noticed?
Well, I think this campaign, I mean, my background is in design, and design, I always say, like, if there's a challenge, that's the most exciting time in any type of design. I mean, I do fashion design, but any type of design, a challenge is the most exciting time. And I think that you and lots of other candidates, you know, we came up with really exciting ways to, like, new exciting things that, you know, would be good to keep. I just wanted to say thank you to Eva and Georgina, who both commented on the thing saying that they like The Sims. Thank you.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but things like that, I think that would be really fun to keep that going. And also, I think that the live streams make the whole campaign more accessible to people who struggle to get to in-person events for whatever reason that could be. I was thinking while you were talking to David about what would be the one thing I would ditch, and obviously I think that the social distancing is really good and it's important, but I think I'll be excited for when we can get back to the overnight vote, because I always love staying up overnight and watching the results come in, and like, yeah, I'll be excited once we're allowed to have overnight counts. I mean, yeah, that'll be good to bring them back. Well, but yeah, overall I think it's been really, really good.
Oh, funnily enough, you saying that, I was talking to somebody earlier and I said, there's one thing I wasn't disappointed about, and that was an overnight vote, because if you're, I, like probably everybody else, has sat up till the wee small hours watching every single vote coming in. But of course, when you're doing that at home, basically you're in your jammies and you can slope off into your kitchen and get yourself a Coke or whatever, stuffing your face with crisps. When you're a candidate and it's like the wee small hours and people are like meeting you and they're lovely and kind to you, you sometimes kind of get interviewed and whatnot, and you're like, oh, I'm knackered, you know. And I must admit, between you, me, and everybody listening, I'm not too disappointed that I'll actually get a night's sleep on the Thursday before I need to get up early on a Friday. One thing I wanted to pick up though, Dylan, which I thought you made a very interesting point, was I thought it was a wonderful idea to be watching full council meetings being streamed. And the thing that struck me was that will give you a very good sense of how things actually operate. And I mean, I remember when I was younger, typically I wanted to get stuff done now. You know, I wanted things to happen quickly, and I didn't necessarily have the same understanding as I do now of how important it is to bring people with you and bring all the different constituent parts. And when I was younger, that felt a bit frustrating. I just wanted them to get to the right answer, if you like. What sort of sense have you got from watching these council meetings, and what have your kind of peers thought of them?
You know, I think the whole reason we do it is because we want more young people to be councillors, but we also want them to know what being a councillor actually is. I think maybe for a lot of people, they kind of go into it and it's like, oh, being a councillor is going to be so easy. You know, I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be the best councillor. You know, no other councillor's got anything on me. And it's like, it's not like that. We want them to watch them and we want them to, get up to date on what's happening in their areas. We want them to know how council actually works. So then when they are elected, they already have that experience from, listening to council meetings. I generally think it's such a good idea to get them more engaged in, local politics, because, everybody loves national politics. It's like, oh, I might see Nicola, but, local politics is really what's most important in my opinion. And we're trying to kind of what's the word, engage people and get them ready for actually going in there, so they're not just walking around mindlessly with no clue what's going on.
Yeah, right, okay. I mean, I think that's a brilliant I think it's a brilliant suggestion, and I hope that you're saying to everyone else to do that, because there can be no better way than watching things. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. And one of the things I suppose I hope that continues from this is that the use of technology such as Zoom has increased accessibility to many people to be able to participate in things. And often people who are older, who might have been quite scared initially of the technology, and then once they've got the hang of it, they've gone, actually, this is great because I don't need to worry about going out on a cold night and slippy ice and all the rest of it. And even thinking from my point of view, if I am successful in election, one of the challenges when you're any kind of elected representative is to be in all of the places that you need to sometimes at the same time. So if you're required to, and as is often the case in Parliament, to attend events in the evening, but you only need to be there for an hour, it would be fantastic if many of the organisations, even if they want to get together in person, also had some kind of dial-in facility, because then it becomes realistic for any elected member of any party to be able to fulfil their responsibilities in the Scottish Parliament, and also to dip into a branch meeting or to catch up with people. So I certainly hope that people think creatively about that. Right, we're going to move on to our last topic, and I wanted to get your ideas about this. As young people, one of my concerns is, which might sound ironic, is that the polls, whatever poll, consistently shows that the SNP can anticipate a good result on Thursday, whatever that good looks like. Being honest, that fills me with fear. And it fills me with fear because I really then worry that people will be complacent and will not go out to vote and say, oh, well, everything's going to be okay because I've read the polls and it's going to be a good result. And I suppose perhaps it's maturity, perhaps it's experience through my life. I'm in favour of always campaigning as though you're behind, which is one of the reasons, despite the limitations, I've thought, no, I'm going to put everything into it. So I suppose my worry is, one, that people don't vote. And what that means in campaigning terms is that we absolutely have to have a focus on what we call get out the vote. It's singularly the most important thing that we need to focus on this week, because at the end of the day, only these crosses in these boxes are going to get us over the line and move us forward. So I'm interested in the three of you, your ideas of how you would mobilise specifically young people, your age group, to get out and vote. So I think we'll start with Jenny this time, will we? And then I'll go to Dylan, and then I'll finish up with David.
Right, yeah, I mean, that we've been talking about that a lot in the branch, and I've already actually voted my postal vote. I sent it in, but yeah, it does worry me as well that people will think, oh, the polls say the SNP will win here, so I'm not going to vote. But I think what's so important to remember as well is that the list vote you know, it can be so close that you can never really say what that's going to be in the polls, and that really is where it comes down to whether or not it'll be a majority. I know that, Michelle, you've spoken to some of the SNP list candidates for this area on the live, and they're really, really great candidates. So I think I wish I could just get through to people like how much, you know, how much all of those candidates could do as well, you know, and how important it is to go and cast both your votes. And then also, you know, even if you think that the SNP are going to win in an area, having every single vote that we have for the SNP is kind of like another push for an independence referendum. And the bigger a majority is, the better, the more chance we're going to have of getting that referendum. So it's not just who wins, it's also by how much. So yeah, I don't know if I have any revolutionary ideas to get out the vote, but I really am looking for them as well.
Well, just make sure with everybody you know that you make sure every pal that you've got, no matter what constituency, get out and vote. And I would also say that everyone should vote regardless, even in, you know, if they're not going to vote SNP, that might sound a strange thing to say, but actually democracy and people having their voices heard is really, really important. So how about yourself, Dylan? Have you got any bright ideas of how we can mobilise getting out the vote for young people?
Well, that's such a big question. I've had to brainstorm. You know, in terms of what you said earlier, though, I do take the same view as you, that we need to be fighting as hard in seats like Falkirk Yes as we do in Dumbarton or Edinburgh Central. You know, since I've been in the SNP, we've never considered any seat to be a safe seat. And I think that's why we're so successful, because we really know how to mobilise our voters to get out there. In terms of getting out the vote for young people, I think I take a more long-term approach in the sense that if young people feel that politicians are listening to them, then they'd be more likely to actually go out and get engaged and to vote. So it might not be a really short-term solution to getting out the vote for this election. But if, like I said, if young people feel that our politicians, our MSPs and MPs and councillors are listening to our concerns and are working to solve them, then that's going to create a more politically engaged demographic of young people.
Yeah, thank you. And how about yourself, David?
Well, I'm the organiser for the Bowness branch, so my sort of get out the vote advice is quite classical, in the sense that really the best thing to do is to get it organised, as I've been doing and will be doing just once this call's finished, you know, so we know that we can contact as many of our supporters as possible in the day and in the week before. Bowness branch, we're aiming to contact, you know, as everyone, which is good. But going beyond that, I always make sure, and just this morning, I text as many of my SNP supporting friends as possible. I mean, I would like to be as diplomatic as you, Michelle, and say I texted all my friends, but you know, just to make sure that they get out and vote on Thursday if they haven't voted already. And I think lastly, Dylan's right, it really is a matter of hammering home the key messages. So, you know, and the key message this time is, if you want the referendum, you've got to vote SNP, because Scotland's future is Scotland's choice. And I think that is as good a strapline as we could possibly get. And I think we need to, in terms of young people specifically, we need to speak to them where they are, because a lot of young people don't use Facebook in the same way that a lot of other people do. Now, we know a lot of adults are on Facebook. Most people are on Facebook. But younger people tend to be, and I can tell you this anecdotally from Bowness, but also just from, you know, studies and things, that younger people tend to look more at Instagram or Snapchat, and even TikTok, which is one which I'm yet to crack, but we'll get there. Maybe we'll get a Bowness branch TikTok for next year's election. But yeah, so no, it's definitely, it's about making sure that we reach young people where they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say, if you don't mind, I was just thinking of this, like, I've also heard that young women are more unlikely to go out and vote. And if there are young women watching, I just want to say that especially at this election, there's so many great policies for women in the manifesto. And, you know, there's if women aren't voting, then the policies aren't going to reflect things that we need and things that are good for us. So please think about that and go out and vote.
And especially for young women, you're right, given that so many women didn't have the right to vote for so long. I mean, I know I encourage my daughter to say, you must vote. And in fact, I say that to everybody. Well, I have to say this, I think I made the right call. I think this has been an inspirational session. I am just humbled having the three of you on and knowing that our future is in such safe hands. I can't thank you enough, but I will thank you. So firstly, David Mitchell, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
contribution.
Michelle.
Jennifer Potter, thank you so much. And also for your Sims work, that's been excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good. And to Dylan McDowell as well, thank you so much for your excellent contribution. It's really been, it's given me lots of cause to reflect as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me along. It's been good.
No problem. And right, so finishing up there, everybody, last few words from me. Election on Thursday. If there's one thing I would say, make sure you vote, vote, vote. Don't miss out on your opportunity to make your voice heard. Second thing, if you're in Falkirk East, there will be an intensive get out the vote exercise going on next week. You will see rather a lot of me in every town and village, and we need all the help we can get. And thirdly, if I am successful, we really hope to be able to continue this series and extend it out to the entire Falkirk district, all the other people involved at political level in the SNP. But anyway, over and out, make sure you vote on Thursday. Thank you very much and goodbye.